this week on DineDrinkCLE, the podcast.
The number one thing they really wanted to get across, in addition to having everything like vegetarian dishes and meat and everything else, they say don't expect just women's sports on TV. This is very much of a sports bar, a Cleveland sports bar.
They are already decorating Tuesday and Thursday this week while there's nobody in the market. They will have a holiday festival on Saturday with 19 pop-up vendors. They're going to be selling Westside Market swag.
I think something else that people should know, maybe if they're going to go to these holiday festivities, something you reported about is there's been some confusion about the parking situation.
Right.
Abundance is taking over the whole diner car, which seems like an apt time because the buzz is growing. They've expanded a lot of dinner services. They do classes, wine dinners, things like that. And then two things I'm very excited about is they're going to do these subscriptions. So one's going to be like a dumpling subscription and one's going to be a sauce.
I'm Josh Duke.
And I'm Alex Darus.
And you're either watching or listening to DineDrinkCLE, the podcast, where each and every week we are joined by Cleveland's best and brightest food experts, insiders, and influencers talking all things food and drink here in the Northeast Ohio area. Well, what are we talking about today, Alex?
Lots to talk about today. We have exciting news about a new different kind of sports bar downtown. The holidays are coming up and the Westside Market is going to celebrate big. And we also have some exciting changes at Abundance Culinary in Cleveland Heights.
Yep, but first up, we've got Marc Bona to talk about that new and interesting sports bar coming to Cleveland. So welcome, Marc.
Hey, guys.
Yes, so the W Sports Bar, women's sports bar, what breaking news? What's going on with that?
This is pretty interesting. So the genesis of this really goes back to March when a special guide came out of what are good places to watch the women's basketball tournament. Several places, not very many, but several places were listed in it. One was a little-known coffee shop, a very new one, opened in Kent by two women, Ali Eclairin and Cassie Kopp, and another business that was there, a very women-centric business and a very successful one owned by John and Shelley Pippin, Brewnuts in Gordon Square. My favorite, I have to say, my bias here, incredible donuts.
Yeah, they're so good.
They're decadent and so good. I love them. And Shelley, I've known Shelley for about 10 years. I've covered her as her business started. Well, this is pretty interesting. They reached out and connected because they had that shared interest of both being part of this guide. And they started talking, and the women approached Shelley and said, hey, we've got an idea. Can we pick your brain? And it was about, Shelley said, well, listen, if you want to open a women's-centric coffee shop in Cleveland, I got to tell you, I really think a better idea would be a sports bar. And they said, well, guess what? Actually, the idea is for a sports bar. They put their head together. Shelley is a very sharp businesswoman who understands social media. She understands business plans, very, very good in what she does and understands her product. They put their heads together. She is a minority owner in the W Sports Bar. Mm-hmm. And it sounds like a great idea. And it's also coming at the right time. Brewnuts is a very I want to say women-owned because she owns it with John, her husband, but very big into women's sports, very much of an all-inclusive place. Of course, it's both Brewnuts, donuts, and craft beer. But it's coming at the right time. Women's sports has gotten a lot of attention in the media in the last 5 to 10 years primarily because of two sports. Women's basketball is just rising and rising for a variety of reasons. And women's soccer, the women's soccer players in particular, really fought long and hard to get pay equity for their sport, and they won that battle. So this is coming at a good time. I talked to both Ali and Cassie about the menu. They are going to have, it's going to be very food friendly, but nothing too formal. I love the way Cassie described it and said, we're not going to have a steak where you have to concentrate on cutting your food and you'll miss the game. But I think that's neat. They've really looked at a lot of grassroots surveys and marketing. They really want this to be friendly. They want it to be very Cleveland oriented. But the number one thing they really wanted to get across, in addition to having everything everything like vegetarian dishes and meat and everything else. They say don't expect just women's sports on TV. This is very much of a sports bar, a Cleveland sports bar. So, like Shelley said, the Cavs are 15-0. It's not like we're not going to be showing the Cavs on TV.
Yeah, and I think it's just so smart. And is there any other place kind of like this? It seems like a very unique concept. But
it is unique. And for Cleveland, it's going to be very unique. There is another place that this is sounding very similar to, and it's a bar which has one of the best names ever, run and owned by a woman that has a very similar focus about showing primarily women's sports, but everything, and it's called the Sports Bra. That's based in Portland, and they opened a couple of years ago, and the interesting thing there is, and looking at it as kind of a beta test, they are doing pretty well enough to where the owner is now turning this into a franchise situation.
Wow.
So that's pretty unique, but it's nice to see 3 women, 2 native to this area, basically come in and say, we want to bring this to Cleveland for Cleveland.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's such a fascinating story. Just the idea that kind of sort of, I'm assuming it kind of was sort of brought about by the Women's Final Four tournament. That brought a lot of attention here to the Cleveland, Ohio area about women's sports. And that sort of sounds like it kind of facilitated a lot of the thinking.
Yeah, and I know there's talk about building a women's soccer stadiums in Cleveland. I don't know the development plans of that.
No, I know what you're talking about. But yeah, so it seems like there's just, like you said, Alex, there's this rising interest in women's sports. And I think it's such a fascinating and smart business move, even just being able to fill that sort of, I wouldn't say niche, because women make up 50% or more of the population. But there's clearly a need there that's not being addressed that this perfectly steps in and fills. I think you're going to see it be successful. I hope.
Yeah, you're both right on this. The NWSL was mentioned in my interviews and my chats with all 3 women. And Josh, you're right. I mean, there's a popularity. I don't know if I want to say movement. Cleveland was in the right place at the right time when it came to that Final Four bid. I mean, that bid went back 5-6 years.
Yeah,
they get it, and then in the course of that time, basketball took off for a lot of different reasons that we don't have to get into, but Cleveland really enjoyed that popularity. I'm seeing this bar and this idea come out as kind of a residual effect. I don't want to say directly from that, but it does have, an effect on it.
Yeah, and I think too, it's like you and I both know how many times do we write about new sports bars opening all over Northeast Ohio? There's literally probably thousands of sports bars, and it's just like, seems crazy that it's now like, oh yeah, a women's sports bar. Like, let's play women's sports too, and also have that be kind of a marketing focus. It's just like, it's kind of about time.
Yeah. And I can totally see so many sort of woman-oriented events being hosted at a place like this, because like, where else are you going to go if you wanted to do some kind of sports-oriented or just woman empowerment sort of thing in March? I think that's Women's History Month, right? So which would be a nice launch date if I don't know what the timeline is. We're looking like, I guess that is a good question. What is the timeline?
Yeah, and location, I think they haven't figured out the details.
To say the target date is 2025 is really ambitious. I'm not sure it's going to open next year. They said that was kind of a dream date. In terms of the location, they're not going specific with the very specific address, but they did tell me Cleveland West Side. So Cleveland proper, west side of Cleveland. That could be a few different neighborhoods. It'll be interesting to see. I think you're right, Alex. It's interesting that how the sports bar, a lot of people open a sports bar, they throw a bunch of pedestrian lagers on tap and they call it a day. But
they do well.
And they do. But recently, we talked about Urban Meyer's Pine House going into Winking Lizard with a very specific focus of different type of stadium seating, because they really want that to be for the sports watching audience. Now you've got a bar, the W Sports Bar, that is women's centric, but not only just women's sports, truly all inclusive. I think they're doing a good thing. I think it's going to be worth checking out.
And hopefully they have some donut specials on the menu.
And they will.
Yeah, hopefully that. Then I'm there. So, and now we're joined by Paris Wolfe. Hi, Paris.
Hi, Alex. Hi, Josh.
Welcome.
And you have a lot of exciting news going on at the West Side Market. I guess we can start off with the holiday festivities that are kicking off this weekend. So
they are already decorating Tuesday and Thursday this week while there's nobody in the market. They will have a holiday festival on Saturday with 19 pop-up vendors. They're going to be selling West Side Market swag if you want a quarter zip hoodie or a hat or a mug or an ornament to gift to someone or for yourself.
And the vendors are like gift vendors?
Gift kind of vendors, everything from pottery and greeting cards to small plants.
Yeah.
So I think you said they're decorating the West Side Market, and all the vendors inside are participating.
The vendors are doing their own stands, and they're just doing an overall market hall decorating in the next couple days.
And I think I also read in your story they have some Santa visits planned, an
Santa
outdoor
is
beer
coming.
garden.
Oh, yeah. The beer garden is during the festival. The Santa visits are going to be the 15th, 20th, and 21st. Mrs. Claus can only make the first two. She will not be at the
She's
third
very
one.
busy. Busy
But
woman.
when Mrs. Claus is not there, I believe the North Coast Men's Chorus is going to be doing holiday music from the balcony to give it a whole festive.
Very cool.
Yeah, that's really sweet. So historically, does the West Side Market do this every year? Is it different this year?
They do decorate. The vendors do decorate, but a lot of the festival and some of the Santa visits and some of the rest of the organized activities are new this year.
Yeah, and it seems like it's part of this new initiative with the
new Cleveland Public Market Corporation taking over management of the West Side Market.
Yeah, it's just cool because I think we've talked a little bit in the summer when they had the pedestrian kind of walkway where you could eat outside, and they've done a few events, and it's just really cool to see them continuing that into the holiday season, which I think, I mean, you and I both know just shopping there, it's always busy this time of year.
Right.
And it's just like keep attracting people for different reasons who maybe they're not just going there to do their grocery shopping. They want to walk around and go to a restaurant and get a bite to eat in the market or something.
Right. You can do a lot. And you can find a lot of new products. I was just there yesterday trying not to buy stuff.
Well,
Yeah, and I always loved growing up going to the mall for like those holiday pop-up experiences, like, you know, talking with Santa or riding on like some choo-choo train or something, I don't know. So having sort of those family friendly events to sort of create those memories where people are going to grow up in Cleveland, be fond of the West Side Market during the holidays. I think that's really special.
Yeah, and especially the market because it helps people have a connection with it. But I think something else that people should know, maybe if they're going to go to these holiday festivities, something you reported about is there's been some confusion about the parking situation.
Right. They changed the parking earlier this year, and they increased the hourly rate. And they instead of parking for an hour, instead of parking for an hour and a half, you can now park for an hour
For free.
and then you pay $1.50 for every hour after that. While that seems pretty simple, they took away the gate where you got your tickets and paid, because that was causing backups on all the way to Lorraine, and it was just hard. And people were getting out of their cars to help other people get their credit cards in because they didn't know what they were doing. So they've taken out that gate, and now you use a QR code where you use your phone with the camera app to take a picture of the QR code, and then you fill in your information. And just like a parking meter, you anticipate how much time you're going to spend at the market. And you buy that much time. If you don't spend that time, you don't pay it, but it's automatically charged to the credit card that you put on file. That credit card is not kept in the system. It's deleted the minute you leave. It's not part of it.
And I think some of the confusion was, like you said, there's no gate. You kind of have to walk around and find a QR code. And I don't think it's the typical, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the city does like Park Mobile app. It's like a different
app. Totally different app.
Different
So you
system. And
can't use the same app. No.
so I think some people were maybe getting confused or forgetting and kind of getting stuck with $30 parking tickets.
Right, because they didn't know.
And so what I know the market has been taking this feedback. What are kind of some of the things they're trying to do to make it a little bit easier for people?
They are going to install a card reader so you can use your credit card to pay, but you still have to pay in advance.
Yes.
But they're not going to put a gate back in.
Okay.
So, and they are also giving a more grace period Monday and Wednesday mornings from, I think it's 10 to noon, you can park for free. So that's a little bit more grace period, and they are giving people until after the holidays. They're getting first warnings and then penalized, but not right away until after the holidays.
And I think you've said too, they've increased like signage and stuff.
Oh my gosh. When I went yesterday, there were bright orange signs, just like the old like campaigns along the roadways or something. Just a lot of signs, a lot of QR codes.
That's
you
good,
can't
though.
miss
Yeah.
it.
Because I think at first, I mean, like I said, I missed it. Like it's, and I'm used to doing this, but I think it's very, I could see a lot of people running into that.
I know, because you want a machine or something, not your own phone.
Well, and you're used to, you park, you get your bag, and then you run into the market because it's cold or something. You know,
But even if you're only going to spend an hour, you're still supposed to use the QR code.
Oh, that's actually good to
Interesting.
know.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Even if you're just going to spend an hour and be free, you're still supposed to use the QR code just in case, because it's just going to make it easier and better, and you're not going to get not likely to get
Gotcha.
fined. And it's going to remind you when you've hit your hour, so you know to put money on it, and you'll already have all your information in there.
So how are they, I guess, tracking people and putting them on their naughty list and sending them tickets? Is there cameras or something? I'm just
By your
curious.
license plate.
Oh, gotcha.
In the
gotcha,
app.
Gotcha. I mean,
Yeah.
I guess I meant for the people who didn't even use the app, like.
Oh, there's probably cameras.
Yeah.
with
Yeah.
The
Okay.
license
Yeah.
plate. Oh, yeah, I guess you're right. If you
Yeah.
didn't use the app, then
That's who's getting the most
Yeah, I would
caught
imagine.
is people who think if they don't enter the information, they can just opt out of the system, but you can't.
But also, like you said before, it's not like the gates was, let's put the gates back in. It's a solution, because I've been stuck behind school buses there. And
Or people who can't figure
or
out
people
what
can't
credit
figure
card
it out,
to
or they're
use
trying to put
how.
money and stuff. And it is. And I think with this whole kind of market revitalization plan, there's going to be some growing pains with it.
Yeah,
And I think parking is probably going to be one of them. But I think it's nice to hear that, okay, this parking thing was new this year, and already after a few months, they've heard the feedback and they're like, how can we make this better? I think it's very promising
what's
for the
nice.
rest of the
Yeah.
future of the market.
That's what's
relatively
nice.
quickly too, to be implementing some of these things, like just like that. You just went down a list of like 5 things they're doing to improve the customer service experience, and I think that says a lot.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And kind of going off of that too with the market, you recently got some news with the funding update, because I know they've been
Yes.
raising money to do, we've talked about on the podcast,
It's a master plan, a multi-phase master plan that's going to take several years. They've been giving presentations on it in the last year, 2 years. They need 67 million, I think is the latest figure. And they have 20 million from the city. They've had that for a while. And today they announced they have 3.6 million additional funding from the George Gunn Foundation.
Awesome. Yeah.
So they're still trying to get 2/3 of the money, and they need that so they can go forward with the renovations, the physical plant renovations. They don't want to get started and just do little pieces. They want to make sure they can keep the market operating, that they can get it all going without shutting things down and being inconvenient to the vendors.
Well, yeah, because that would be horrible. And that's what I think. It's just such a logistical challenge, literally, to all of these moving parts of the market. So that's why I think I think it's really easy to complain. Like, no one likes getting a parking ticket. It does suck, but it's like they're trying to work through it and just make it a better place so it lasts another 125 years.
Right.
Yeah, and what was the deadline for them to raise this funding, or did they have a target date at least?
I'm not sure there's so much a target date that's hard and fast, but they're hoping to get a lot of the changes started by the end of 2025.
Okay.
Yeah.
I feel like they've got plenty of time, kind of. I mean, that's easier said than,
I
I'm
know,
just
I know.
sitting here behind my little microphone.
Well,
saying
and
that.
I'm sure
But-
who even knows like the behind the scenes of what it goes into trying to
Yeah.
raise $67 million.
But doesn't 2025 sound like so far away?
I know. It's
Yeah, I
like
guess I just mean
6 weeks away.
they've already done 1/3, and I guess since only a few months. So
Right.
relatively speaking, if they keep that sort of
Momentum going,
momentum,
it should
then-
look good.
Yeah.
And getting money from the Gunn Foundation is a huge vote of confidence that should also inspire other donors and foundations to feel good about funding the market.
Yeah. I think it's always great. And I think I've really enjoyed having these updates all year and looking forward to next year of just seeing where the market is going to go. Because it's the jewel of our city.
It really is.
Okay, Alex, so you have a bit of an update, some cool news coming out of Abundance Culinary. So talk to us a little bit about that.
Yes. Abundance Culinary is a modern Chinese restaurant in Cleveland Heights. They are located in the diner car on Lee Road. I'm If you've ever driven by, you've seen it.
Can't miss it.
Yeah. They found their permanent home last year, 2023. Liu Fang and her husband, Carl Setzer, they moved here from China. They have an amazing story. Go to cleveland.com and read it because it's truly an amazing story of how they got here and opened this restaurant. But Liu Fang is really one of the buzziest chefs in Cleveland right now. Plate Magazine recognized her as one of the chefs to watch in 2024. And that's basically like they pick a class of chefs every year that they're like, keep an eye out for them. They're going to be doing cool things.
And one recently, in recent years at least, that made their list was what? Chef Finney?
Jeremy Umansky from
Jeremy.
Larder,
Yes.
who actually that's where Liu Fang started doing her pop-ups was at Larder. So it's
surprise.
It's always
Yes.
for full circle. So yes, they eventually found the diner currently Road, and actually another thing is their landlord is Chef Doug Katz, who owns Kiln and Jug and Amba, and Doug Katz owns the building, and it used to be half Abundance, half Rising Star Coffee Roasters, one of their locations there, and it was kind of. If you talk to, especially Liu Fang, it's like Doug is like the best landlord ever, it sounds like, because he was allowing them to kind of integrate and figure out their footing. And kind of the goal was for Rising Star to always move out and have its own standalone thing, it sounds like. So they'll be moving to a new space on Taylor Road, which means Abundance is taking over the whole diner car, which seems like an apt time because the buzz is growing. They've expanded a lot of like dinner services. They do classes, wine dinners, things like that. So now there will be more seating. They won't be open the early coffee hours. They open at 11 for lunch, but they're really encouraging people to go to the new Rising Star for that. But the really cool thing is, so at the beginning of the year, the first 3 weeks of January, they're going to reduce their hours to do kind of like a facelift. So they're going to add more seating. I think last summer, maybe 2023. Okay. At some point they added a patio seating, but they're going to expand that to include like full liquor service, so it's not like more of a sit down eating experience over there. And then two things I'm very excited about is they're going to do these subscriptions. So one's going to be like a dumpling subscription and one's going to be a sauce subscription. And
like, sorry, when you say subscription, like a Netflix subscription?
No, like monthly.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, like a monthly.
Yeah.
So the dumpling subscription is Liu Fang makes these amazing homemade dumplings, different fillings, relies a lot on seasonal ingredients. She'll sometimes kind of blend like the Midwest flavors with traditional different styles of Chinese cooking. And so they're going to have a frozen dumpling subscription so you can enjoy dumplings at home, which is really great. And then...
Sorry, is that something you got to pick up or they're going to deliver it somehow? Or
I think you have to pick it up. I think that's coming with the new year. the
gotcha.
Details. They just announced it. But the sauce subscription too. So if you've eaten at Abundance, everything there is homemade, including their sauces. They'll have like... infused different kinds of soy sauce and things like that. So the sauce subscription will be both of Liu Fang's house-made sauces and also popular Asian sauces that they use in the kitchen, and kind of teaching people to kind of experiment with their flavors. So I think it's just really exciting. I think it's been so fun, especially for me to just watch like, okay, I started following them on Instagram when they did the pop-ups, and then when I started working for cleveland.com, I was like, oh, I want to write a profile on them, and just seeing them grow. And it's really exciting especially because, I mean, we always like to promote people who are born and raised in Cleveland or whatever, but I think it's really cool to see someone like Liu Fang from China come here during the pandemic, basically start from scratch after having successful businesses in China, and really cementing herself in the culinary scene so quickly.
Yeah, very special, very awesome, inspirational story, I'd even say. And just when you think about how she followed that path, and you think about how she's super buzzy and coming up in Cleveland, who else in the conversation do you think is maybe the next person behind her? I'm just curious. Like,
I don't know. Because I would say her, like, she's like my one of like, I think would not be surprised to see her nominated for a beard in a few years or something like that, or just continuing to really dominate. Like, just doing cool things in the restaurant
the
scene.
innovation, I think, is what really, even just from a business standpoint too, not just the food, because when you're talking about subscriptions, I said Netflix. Like,
Oh,
you know
I know.
what I'm saying?
Well, and she does dumpling classes. She does
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if she's done one of these in a while, but I think last holiday season she did like an Asia Town shopping tour where you would go to Asia Town to the markets with her and like shop with her, like see what she buys.
Okay.
And so it's just so cool to see them doing that. But I was gonna say, I know you and we've talked about this before, the Kyuju pop-up.
Yeah.
And they're going to be opening an omakase brick and mortar restaurant.
Do you know, that's exactly what I had in mind when I asked you the question. I'm like, I wonder if she's going to say that.
Yeah, I think it's very cool. And they've been really ramping up the pop-ups too. And I think it goes with what I just said and I've said it before on this podcast, but the Cleveland culinary scene is just so special because I think there's not a lot of places that you could start, just like Liu Fang, who was making dumplings in her kitchen because she was stressed out, and end up being, in a few years, like a very successful chef. And it's because of this community of chefs, and they help each other out and doing a pop-up here and a pop-up there. And then look at the Kyuju chefs. The Kyuju chefs, they kind of, same thing. They moved to Cleveland, kind of got started at Ishoni, and now totally taking off
to the races. And talking about Rising Stars sort of leaving that location, do you think customers are going to sort of be missing that, or do you think they're going to fill that with different menu items? You know, like I'm imagining that there's going to be at least a small subset of customers that are like, I
think people. I know if you read Liu Fang's post about them closing, she's like, I'm sad I'm not going to be spoiled by the world's best coffee every morning that I come into work. But I think especially because Rising Star has such a name in Cleveland, it makes sense that they probably outgrew that space because it was like, I mean, it's like two growing businesses, you know what I mean? And I think people will still go there. But also I know in the post announcing all the changes, Liu Fang mentioned to stay tuned for early morning things. So who knows what that could entail. Hopefully delicious breakfast buns, but who knows? But so, yeah, and I just think it's, like I said, Rising Star, they have people go to all of the locations knowing kind of the vibe they're going to get, the coffee they're going to get, go there and do work. So I think it's kind of cool to have another separate space for that. Thanks so much for listening to or watching DineDrinkCLE, the podcast. Make sure to like, subscribe, and follow us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. Follow us on Instagram at DineDrinkCLE and subscribe to our newsletter at cleveland.com/newsletters.